often overtake our own, doesn't it? So I came back to the UK last year in October. Things had calmed down a bit in Peru, and I thought they'd calm down here. And even before I'd finished my 14 days obligatory isolation, England went into lockdown, and it seems to be a bit like that ever since. So we go on to the next slide, thank you. I've swapped Peru for I've swapped shantytown life, living, working out in the pandemic, virtually with my church, helping with food parcels. And next one, please. This view, and I've swapped the view there to a lovely view of the Dorset coastline. Next, please. So, yes, lovely. I'm from near Bournemouth, and so I've walked the coast lots of times in the winter, minus some degrees. But it's been a very strange time for me. And so as I'm standing here today, I'm hoping to go back in July. But again, it depends on several factors working their way through. But I just know that at the moment I'm doing what God wants me to do now, and it's a joy to be able to be with you here. I've only been to 2 other churches and been connecting online with others as well from my linked churches. So next, please. The project. So this is the Shalom Centre. Remember, we did a rebuild in 2013, 2014. Had a very busy centre for the disabled. Over 100 children coming each week. That unfortunately had to close presentially in March due to the lockdown on the 16th of March 2020 in Peru. And then we worked remotely. Next slide, please. We worked remotely from May until September. But the children, whose our main diagnosis is autism, wasn't able to cope. They were doing schooling online, therapy online. It was just too much. And so we just had to stop at the end of September. So the project for the children's disabilities closed, but the church continues on. Next, please. So the church carries on ministering to our church with people with disabilities, the vulnerable in our communities, and also in the community. And really, Shalom has been able to show God's compassion in so many ways over the pandemic. Next, please. We've been giving out food parcels. Here we have 3 young men with disabilities, and 2 of them, their mother died as well during the pandemic. She was very elderly, very frail, again, couldn't get the help she needed, and unfortunately passed away. But we're able to continue supporting those 2 brothers as they try and keep each other going through the pandemic. Next one, please. We've also been up to the higher hills around Lima to give out food parcels. And again, this is one of Miguel in the centre with Down syndrome, who was one of we've known him since he was about 3, he's now 19. And very sadly, this was taken in August, and very sadly in April we heard that his mother, Segundina, who's there just behind me with the green mask on, passed away due to COVID. But again, a lovely Christian woman that we'd known and shared with her. But it's a real challenge to her family now. But Miguel is being cared for by his sisters. So COVID has hit Peru, has hit the Shalom community, as it's hit all of us around the world. And it's been much more challenging. Next, please. So we've been connected through WhatsApp in the church community. So the church community, from the 16th of March last year, every day we're connecting. We set up a WhatsApp group for daily chatting, daily devotions, morning prayers. So I sometimes wake up and there's like 100 and something messages in my WhatsApp group. And we've all then got a closed group for the Sunday service or the Bible study. So we go through it, and then at certain points we all pray together, share things together. So 2 groups that function side by side, and that's kept us together at the moment. We've still got some of our community without a smartphone, but most of us are connected on that WhatsApp. And I was leading that until March this year. So from Peru, from England, I was leading the community, preaching Sundays, doing the morning devotions, right up until the end of February. But that was a real struggle for me, dealing with being in the UK, trying to keep connected, the time differences, and those challenges. So God really intervened in that. Next slide, please. So in January, when I was realizing I couldn't come home, the bishop just called me and said, we're going to ordain some deacons, and there's this chap, Raoul, I'd really like to send him to be your assistant. Well, Raoul is now leading the church, and I just thank God for that provision. I've known him since he was about 14. He's in his early 30s now, and he's doing a great job. So there he is on his ordination on the 10th of January, and from the end of January, he joined our WhatsApp groups, and he's been preaching and leading that from then. And he's been really lots of initiatives. So next slide, please. He started a soup kitchen on the 15th of March, sorting everybody out, organising people, and we feed about 50 people every day, Monday to Friday, from that time. And I just heard yesterday, I couldn't get a slide in of this, but, excuse me, he's been trying to get natural gas into the building. And I've tried several times, I haven't been able to, probably the foreigner couldn't do it, but he's managed to get it in. So as from Monday, they will be able to cooking with natural gas, which is far, far cheaper than it is. You haven't got to keep going by the big bottles of gas. So that's great. So we've got the soup kitchen, we've got natural gas, we're using the natural resources of the country. And so I just thank God for that provision. Next, please. So they're cooking lots of lunches, and there they are coming to collect their lunches in the room downstairs. Next, please. And there's Lucy coming to collect for her and her son, and then Felicita coming to collect for her and her family. So it's been a real blessing to have that facility. Lots of neighbours are coming, people in the community. So again, Shalom continues to serve those most in need. Next, please. And another thing that Raoul is a great technical buff, and I was really surprised a few weeks ago. I joined in with their Sunday service, and I saw Ricardo's picture. He's one of our young men with disabilities, doesn't read or write very well. And there he was reading the psalm, standing there very proudly reading the psalm. And what Raoul had done, he had read it, Ricardo had repeated it, he'd read it, and then in the end he'd edited out his own voice, and so Ricardo read the psalm on his own. It was brilliant. It was just a really lovely thing to see. And Ricardo was so proud. And the next slide as well. And they were doing, this is Ricardo as well, they did a Thy Kingdom Come, and Shalom participated one day. And again, Raoul got Ricardo reading and praying. And it was just so lovely to see him there praying and joining in with that service. And next slide as well. And then Julio, who's again one of our young men with disabilities, was reading the 23rd Psalm. So there was, I couldn't do the video clip, I couldn't get it on, but there was Julio reading, very concentrated, with all these little sheep running around behind him. So if anybody wants to see the video, I could send it to you because it's really cute. But it was really proud, and that was a real proud moment for me that these young men were able to participate. And I just thank God that Raoul's there to encourage that really at this time. So the church is growing and growing in confidence and growing in faith as they serve each other and learn new skills at this time. So again, amazing things have been happening, and I just praise God for that provision. Next one, please. Oh, that's another one of Julio, yeah, with a little thing. So this is now as well, Raoul started again Bible studies with some people in the building. That was permitted about a couple of weeks ago. You still can't have a service on Sunday because on a Sunday, no one's allowed to go anywhere. So we have a night curfew from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. in the morning, and Sundays everybody has to stay at home. So it's quite complicated. So they're still doing the Sunday service on WhatsApp, and possibly might do something on a Saturday, but they're seeing each other on the soup kitchen, they're communicating every morning on the WhatsApp devotions, and they have now a Thursday afternoon Bible study group together with a few gathered. Next one, please. So there, I think about 6 of them go, and they're all socially distanced in the salon, the room downstairs. And next slide, please. And there's Ricardo just praying at the end of the service. So I thank God for faithfulness in the members of Shalom, really, that have really shown through. It's been a really tough time. I mean, I was 9 months in Peru through the first lockdown, and it's very different. People live in very crowded conditions. If you don't go out to work, you don't get fed. So I think with the soup kitchen and being able to serve the community, it's been a real blessing, and Shalom continues to be a beacon to those most vulnerable in the community. Next slide, too. So COVID is a real problem still. A lot of people, because there are no ICU beds, are at home just connected to an oxygen tank. And every day I find on my WhatsApp groups from Peru and on Facebook, who's got an oxygen tank, where can you find oxygen refills? Because people are monitoring their own breathing in their homes because there are no provision for them in the hospital. It does say that Peru has one of the highest excess deaths in South America. And of a population of 32 million in the country, there have been over 66,000 deaths. So I think in correlation with ours, it's been much higher than us. And then from the beginning of March until now, there's probably about a middle of about 300 people dying every day. Next slide, please. There's little vaccine rollout. I've now been double dosed, and that was one of the things that I can't go back unless I've been vaccinated. But also, I feel like in a very privileged position. So 7% of the whole population has had one dose of vaccine, and only 3.3% have had 2 doses. So it's very little vaccine rollout. I have seen on the page there's been a lot of lobbying for disabled people to get the vaccine. So Ricardo's been vaccinated, and a couple of other people from the church have been vaccinated. So again, we need to pray about the COVID situation, the vaccine provision. But one other thing that we chuck into this whole melting pot of problems in Peru at this moment, next slide please, is that next week Peru goes once again to the elections. In April they had the first round with 18 candidates, and the first 2 runners were going forward to the final round presidential election, as long as someone gets enough votes. I'm not sure what the system is, but someone needs to get a majority of a certain percentage to be able to called in. So we have a tie-off between a very far left, the guy with a hat from the north of Peru, a very rural area, a trade unionist, a local school teacher, facing Keiko Fujimori, who's from a very well-known family of politicians. Her father, Albert Fujimori, was in president from the 90s to the 95, and she's running, and she's very far right. So this great dichotomy, this great polarization of voting, and it was really funny not funny, it's a real challenge. In the voting, so they had the 18 candidates, Pedro Rom with 19% of the vote, Keiko came in second with 14% of the vote, but the winner overall was those who spoiled their ballot vote papers. 21% of the ballot papers were spoiled because people were not happy with the candidate's choice. So it's going to be really interesting about what happens next Sunday. So please pray for that in 2 ways, really. Firstly, the outcome of the election and the way forward for Peru in this climate post-pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic, but also what implications that will be for the COVID infection, as every adult has to go out to vote next week. If you don't vote, you get a fine, unless, of course, you can prove that you're unwell or you've got some other problem. But it's going to be interesting to see what that going out voting does to the numbers, and also what happens in light of all what happens in the political situation. So next slide, please. But Shalom continues to gather, continues to be. This is last Sunday. It was Felicita's birthday, the lady in the wheelchair in the middle. It was her birthday, and Shalom gathered. Not quite as socially distanced as I would hoped, but some of them have got masks on. But they are still gathering. They are still encouraging one another. They're serving in the soup kitchen. They're encouraging. They're growing in faith. And for me, that's a real encouragement that God is providing for them in these very difficult times. And they have been strengthened in their faith. And just as I finish this little slot, the last slide, please. Psalm 40, verse 5. Many, Lord, O God, are the wonders you have done, the things you planned for us. No one can compare with you. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, they would be too many to declare. So I've probably gone over my allotted time, and I could probably go on even more, just declaring what God has done. In the middle of this pandemic, God continues to work in people's lives, lives that are already difficult, are already challenged. It's been even more challenged in the pandemic. And I have seen resilience in them. I have seen God's light shining through them as they depend on God in their lives and serve others. And I just give thanks for Raul and his leadership, and the peace that's given me that I can stay here and do the things that I need to do here, and know that God's plans are our plans are in his hands, and he has got many, many more things to do in our lives and through us, even in these very difficult times. Thank you.